As a veteran of these wars, I want to say that what has happened in Afghanistan is a complete tragedy, and our hearts go out to the families and the victims of this over-psychotic rampage. Something that should be made very clear is that this isn't an isolated incident. From children being torn to pieces by helicopter missiles and drone strikes, to civilians being killed in notorious night raids. There's no shortage in the atrocities and the war crimes that have been stacked in Afghanistan by U.S. and NATO forces. This isn't because of a few bad apples or rogue soldiers. This is a natural outgrowth of a 10-year occupation. This incident can be blamed on two main causes. First, the war itself is a crime against humanity. It is opposed by the majority of Afghans, 2/3 of service members, and the vast majority of people in the United States. Yet this war continues with extreme violence and is a humanitarian disaster. It's no surprise that these atrocities continue to emerge in Afghanistan. Secondly, not only is the U.S. military command guilty of crimes against humanity and the people of Afghanistan and Iraq, but it's guilty of committing crimes internally against its own enlisted rank-and-file service members. The U.S. military has created a crisis of mental health among rank-and-file soldiers. For the past 3 years, more active duty troops have committed suicide than have been killed in combat. As someone who has been through the medical system at Fort Lewis, I can tell you that it's almost nearly impossible to go through the process. It takes over a year. During this year time frame, soldiers are supposed to adhere to UCMJ. While they've been diagnosed for no longer fit for duty, they still fall under the punishment of the military, which ends up resulting in soldiers going AWOL, taking their own lives, or being dishonorably discharged and not treated for the disease that they acquired during combat. A lot of soldiers go through the process, they're called lazy, that they're told that they're lying. We know that there's been doctors who have been intentionally ordered to not diagnose soldiers with PTSD and treat them with adjustment disorders. The result of all of this coming together is creating a force completely broken and stretched to its limits. There's no shock that some people are taking their own lives and manifesting in taking the lives of other people given these horrible, abysmal conditions for U.S. service members in the military.
But this incident is a wake-up call to the people of the United States and to people around the world. So let us look at some of the facts about this war in Afghanistan. All mainstream media polls show that at least 2/3 of the American public oppose the war in Afghanistan. The same is true for the U.S. military, where most soldiers believe that the war is not worth fighting and no longer want to go. And the people of Afghanistan, who we are told we are there to liberate, overwhelmingly oppose the foreign occupation of their land. And at the same time that there is widespread opposition among the people, both in the United States, in the military, and in Afghanistan, U.S. politicians and Pentagon generals admit that the war is a quagmire. They admit that there is no possible military victory. They admit that there is no possible end in sight for the war in Afghanistan. So essentially, they are continuing a war that they themselves acknowledge cannot be won. All the while, the lives of U.S. service members continue to be thrown away, the lives of innocent Afghans continue to be robbed, and hundreds of millions of dollars of our tax money, about $500 million every single day just for the war in Afghanistan, at a time of a deep economic crisis, is poured into this unpopular war. There is no longer any question. The people of the United States, the taxpayers, want this war to end. The people of Afghanistan want us gone. The money for this war is desperately needed here at home for jobs and education and social services. The war is a complete disaster for soldiers, their families, and the people of Afghanistan. Today, we are calling on the U.S. government to hear the demands of the people, that we want an immediate and complete withdrawal of all U.S. forces from Afghanistan and from the region. We demand that not one more soldier comes home in a coffin from Afghanistan, that not one more soldier comes home in a wheelchair or with psychological trauma, and that not one more innocent person loses their life in Afghanistan at the hands of the U.S. war machine. And we know that if left to their own devices, the U.S. government will continue this war indefinitely, and they have made that crystal clear. That is why the people of the United States, allied with soldiers in the military, must take independent action to force this war to end.
The point is that the war itself is the war crime, the greater war crime. Ask the people of Afghanistan whether they're more upset about 16 people dying or the tens of thousands of people who have died as a consequence of our invasion and our war and our continued occupation. That is the real tragedy in Afghanistan. Secondly, when the Obama administration tries to suggest that our mission there is noble, that we will yet get out with honor, that we still have work to do, that all of this about burning Korans and this poor guy who killed 16 civilians is somehow just an aberration. He's lying, and I can't believe he's so stupid that he doesn't know he's lying. If he had an ounce of decency left in him, he would do what Secretary of Defense McNamara did after the Vietnam War. He would admit that he knew the war was wrong, that it was unwinnable, that it was a crime, and that he bore responsibility for the tens of thousands, in the case of Vietnam, hundreds of thousands of people who died. That's the only way we could hope to get any honor back from what we are doing in Afghanistan. All the troops should be withdrawn immediately, all the civilian support should be withdrawn immediately, and take some of that $2 billion that we're spending every week in Afghanistan and give it to the people of Afghanistan to rebuild that which we have destroyed. Then and only then, when we are gone and we are making some recompense, and we can never fully make recompense, but some monetary recompense for what we have done to the people and the land of Afghanistan, then and only then will there be some small measure of honor that will have been retrieved from the dishonor and the historical debacle which is our war in Afghanistan. Thank you.